Hey, week 3, first assignment. This first assignment is going to go pretty quick because it's just a kind of a review of what I've taught you. You have two algebra rational expressions, or what these are called, that you're multiplying together. Here's what these are called, because if you're taking trig, you're going to see that word come up. It's just basically fractions that have like algebra expressions within them. Okay, so multiplication, that's a 1 and a 2 and a 3 process. First, you don't need the bottoms to be the same, okay? That's adding, which we're going to look at in the next two. I got 4 examples. These two are multiplying. Okay, first let's, when I have minuses within the expression, parenthesize, same with pluses, a minus there and a minus there. Okay, I want to see if I can rewrite these by factoring them. So we have x to the second minus 2x minus 24. GCF to that would just be 1, so I'm not even going to waste time making a box for that. 1 times negative 24 is negative 24, so it's a positive times a negative. We're trying to add to get to negative 2. I'm just going to tell you what it is to make this quick. 4 and 6, okay? A is 1, delete it, and x plus 4 times x minus 6. So what I do is I cross that out and just go x plus 4 times x minus 6. Okay, x second minus 1, man, that's a dot. There's the GCF's 1, but that's definitely a dots, okay? Because you got minus xx. Plus minus, you always go plus minus on a dots, and then 1, 1. Okay, down here, let's look at the x squared plus 7x plus 12. I could factor that sucker. Okay, GCF's 1, so it's not worth doing. So 1 times 12 is 12, positive, negative times negative, or we can always switch it to positive times positive if we have to. If you divide it by 3, you get 4, and that's negative 7, so to make it plus 7, you just go plus plus. A is a 1, okay? So make your 2 parentheses. Okay, so rewrite that, x plus 3 times x plus 4. Now this is a 2-term. The GCF would be 1, okay? 1x minus 6, and don't believe that's a dots, so that stays. So on top you got x plus 4, x minus 6, x plus 1, x minus 1. There's an implied times between all your parentheses. Bottom you got x plus 3, x plus 4, x minus 6. Now cross out the parentheses that you can. X plus 4 goes, x minus 6 goes. Then I have these 3 remaining. And do I have any outside factors that are not in parentheses? No, I do not. Okay, so that's the answer. X plus 1 times x minus 1 over x plus 3. Okay, this next one, a 1, a 2, and a 3. Don't want to put a parentheses there. Don't want one there, so we don't have to do step 1, okay? So there will be no parentheses at the end. Okay, now we take 4 times 7, 28, and then I have x to the second with y to the second. Okay, 5 times 12 is 60, and then an x to the fourth and a y to the first. Now, go to that. If you don't have you can either get a multiplication table, or you can go Google GCF calculator and use the first one that pops up, and we want to find the GCF out of 28 and 60. It's 4. Okay, so we're going to divide. That means divide them by 4. 28 divided by 4 is 7, and then 15. So that's 7 over 15. Now the x's, we get rid of the smaller one and then subtract that from the larger one down under. So 4 minus 2 is 2, x to the second. Y to the first, or y. Okay, that's multiplication. Now we're going to hit a couple 2 addition problems. Okay, addition's totally different than multiplying, okay? And on the assignment, the first two are multiplication, the second two are addition, okay? So, addition's a different animal. You look at the bottoms, we don't have the common, they're different, okay? So you need to rewrite the problem, and you need to find your lowest common denominator. The LCD is what that's called. Now the tops, you wouldn't put a parentheses there because there's no plus, no minus, or there. So just drop them, okay? Now here, on the bottoms, remember the bottoms are the most important thing. You got a minus and you got a plus. Now could that be factored? So, meaning, if I go like this, GCF here would be 1. So it's not worth doing. Then we see if we have a DOPS. If you're doing a DOPS, get that stupid 1 off the X. You don't need it. Yeah, that's XX minus and then 2. So on my new fraction, I need to write X plus 2 times X minus 2. And then that one, X plus 2, the GCF's 1, and that's not a DOPS, so that'll just stay the same. Okay. Okay, so your lowest common denominator, well, we got X plus 2 on bottom. You got X minus 2 on bottom. And then you got X plus 2 again. So X plus 2, you got 1 to 1. Okay, that's good. X minus 2, you got 1 and 0, so you need to make it so they each have 1. So you put an X minus 2 there, and you also got to bring it to the top. Now we have established the common denominator. So go down at the bottom, put X plus 2 times X minus 2. Now what do you have on top? Well, you got 3x plus 6 times x minus 2. Okay, you're going to need to do the distributive property there, okay? So you know you got 3x for sure, and then 6 times x is 6x. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. So again, I just drop that, and then here I find those products. I could probably put those together. It'd be 9x minus 12. Now, put the 9x minus 12. Now, see, you would put a parentheses around it because there's a minus, and then you need to see if that top is going to factor, which I think this one does. GCF DOPS would be the way to go. GCF 9 and 12, if you use that little calculator that I gave you. 9, 12, that's 3, okay? So GCF's 3, so I factor out a 3. Then I've got 3x minus 4. That would not be a DOPS, so I cross that out, I can rewrite it as 3x minus 4. You wouldn't be able to get rid of any of your parentheses, and 3 is your only outside factor. So you wouldn't be able to reduce it with anything on bottom because you don't have anything on bottom that's outside. Okay, there we have it. Okay, and then the next addition problem, same idea. The bottoms are not the same, okay? You have to establish a common denominator. But before we do that, we need to make some parentheses. That's a minus, and that's a minus. Do not try to factor those. Do not factor the tops. You're wasting time. I'm well aware that's a DOPS, but you're wasting time and energy if you try to factor it. Just trust me on this, okay? You're creating more work for yourself if you try to factor the tops. Just drop the tops. You need to put parentheses around them if there's pluses and minuses, but don't attempt to factor. Now the bottoms is where we have to look at possibly factoring. I'm pretty sure that'll factor. Better anyway. Okay, GCF would be 1. Wouldn't have to do it then. One times negative 3 is negative 3. So it's a positive times a negative, and you're adding to try to get to positive 2. So divided by 1 is 3. Okay, that's negative 2, so you go plus, minus. A is 1, so you can just write x minus 1 times x plus 3. So you need to rewrite that. Remember, in middle school, you always learned you can't add fractions unless the denominators are the same, and this is no different, okay? You can multiply them like we did on the first two examples, you just can't add them. So LCD, we got x minus 1, we've got x plus 3. So x minus 1, we're 1 to 0. That does not count, okay? It's got to be on bottom. It cannot be on top. You don't count it if it's on top. So 1, 0. Okay, so I need to raise that one up by x minus 1, x minus 1. Don't just put a second power on that if it's in parentheses. Actually put it out there. X plus 3 is your 1 to 1. That's good, okay? So we have our common denominator. Okay, now what do we have on top? And you can cross out the denominators after you put the common on the bottom. So you've got x squared minus 1, 1x squared I'm going to put, plus x minus 1 times x minus 1. Well, there's no times going on right here, so I'm just going to put 1x second and circle it, and negative 1 and circle it. Okay, if there's no times, just write the two terms, circle. Now over here we got times, so we need to do the FOIL. So I'm going to have 1x times 1x, 1x times negative 1, negative 1 times 1x, negative 1 times negative 1. So that's 1x squared, circle it. That's negative 1x. That's another negative 1x. Those do not cancel, they're both negatives. And then 1. Okay, now what do we got? Well, remember, you got to look at these two as well. Don't forget about these two that I just dropped. So x second, you got 1 and 1. That makes 2. X's, you have the two negative ones. That makes negative 2. Then negative 1, positive 1 makes 0. So we're not going to have that. Now write your 2x squared minus 2x. Then see if that factors. It's only two terms. So we'd go and look. There is a GCF here, man. Okay. They both have x and they both have 2. Okay. So I think we need to do the GCF. Then see if we have adopts after the GCF's done. From first semester to factor two terms, you do GCF, then adopts. GCF, you're going to do the 2x. Then I go up and divide by 2x. So that's 1x, and then you write minus 1, because 2 divided by 2 is 1. That's not adopts, though, because the x does not have its second power anymore. So I rewrite that top expression as 2x times 1x minus 1. And what do you know? Those are the same expression, so you can cancel those. And the answer is 2x over x plus 3. Now, I'm going to give you a little piece of advice. Let's say I would have had all three terms here, okay? Let's say I would have had all three terms. Let's say instead of those 1's adding to 0, I would have had like a 6, okay? This is a what if. It's a what if, okay? Okay, to know if that can be factored, because I know it's annoying to make a T-chart and not have it factor. To know if it'll factor, you use the discriminant, the quadratic discriminant, okay? B squared, 2 parentheses, minus 4AC. And then get on either one of your calculators, or you can also just use the Google calculator to apply that. Not Google, gosh. And see what you can do with that. So get your square root symbol right there. You'll need 2 parentheses at the beginning, okay? 1 comes up on its own, okay? So square root. Yeah, 1 comes up, but you need to make a second one always, just like you would on a B. B would be negative 2. Close the parentheses. And then your second power key, you have to hit the X to the Y power and hit 2. Okay. Minus parentheses 4 parentheses 2 parentheses -6. Okay. And then close it. Okay. Hit equals. If it's a decimal, don't bother. It won't factor, so you just write this on top. Okay. If it's a whole number, then the T-chart will eventually work. Okay.